we will spend eternity separated from God. And it's that great tragedy of being lost for eternity that brings us here on the streets of Chester. But I've been doing this open-air preaching for about 5 years in cities up and down the country. And I'm well aware that people don't take the gospel particularly seriously. And my understanding is that we don't believe in the God of the gospel. And so in the next 5 minutes, I will try and present to you the reasons why we can believe the God of the gospel. The first thing that I need to address is the false God of evolution. We have replaced the God of the gospel with the God of evolution. He's a rather poor God, I have to say. He offers you nothing, and he gives you nothing. He just gives you a purposeless, meaningless life. If all you are is stardust and there's nothing to the future, you have no significance. But not only is evolution a rather poor God, he's also a false God, because the evidence is not for evolution. The evidence is for creation. You may not be aware of it, but there are 1,000 scientists who signed a website called Darwin's Descent, or Descent from Darwin, actually, I think is the technical title of the site. I was looking it up this morning. And basically they said the complexity of biological life is too great for evolution to be true. And I can give you chapter and verse on why that's the case. I created a website, you're very welcome to take the details of it. But the evidence is overwhelming. You know, every one of these trees has 1 trillion cells. Each cell contains a universe of complexity. And each cell contains a library of information in the genetic code. No way could that come about by random mutations. You must understand the word mutation means random mistakes. Mistakes destroy design, they don't create it. In fact, Professor John Sanford, in his book Genetic Entropy, points this out. Now, he was a very senior geneticist, professor at Cornell University, co-inventor of the gene gun, probably should have got a Nobel Prize for it. In the end, he came to the conclusion, after 30 years of teaching evolution, that there was no evidence for this. And then he came to the conclusion, even more, the evidence is against it, because our genetic code that I was telling you about, that library of information, well, for the human being, every time we reproduce, 300 mistakes get reproduced with it. Well, 1 million years of evolution would have destroyed that genetic code. So not only do we have a brilliantly designed genetic code, but it's a genetic code that could only be thousands of years old. And that's not going to fit into evolution. Well, may I suggest to you the situation is even worse for the people who believe in evolution, because in September last year, Professor Steve Taylor, a friend of mine from Liverpool University, Professor of Electrical Engineering, presented a paper to a science conference. And I've been talking to him about this paper for some time. In that paper, he records that there's at least 100 scientific papers showing soft tissue in dinosaurs and other fossils. In fact, in one example, there's 17 dinosaur bones submitted. All 17 had soft tissue. That's blood, DNA, and muscle. But it doesn't take a rocket science to realize that soft tissue only lasts thousands of years. Well, the reason he presented the paper was every single dinosaur bone he sent to be tested for carbon-14 had carbon-14. Carbon-14 only lasts thousands of years. If the fossils are only thousands of years old, and all the evidence points to that, they're not evidence for evolution. They're evidence for a worldwide flood. If God judged the world once with a flood, then we know from Jesus he will judge it again. And so the reason we come on the streets of Chester is to encourage everyone to look to Jesus. For Jesus is the one who can save us from our